So if they only made 200 to 250 of these Arden kits, why do we see so many of them now? Part 3 of the Arden. The year was 1951, and the Arden Company had been out of business for a year or two. In the US, for the most part, the Arden kit was nothing more than a footnote, if that, in Flathead history. It was unlikely that anybody who didn't deal with fleet trucks or speedboats even really knew what this kit was at this point. Now, there were two guys from Sherman Oaks that ran a speed shop called CT Automotive. They were both looking to build a car to take out to the salt flats and break a record. The problem was, they had the car, but they didn't have a power plant. They were hitting up different junkyards looking for something that they could possibly rebuild to go into the car. Luck just happened to be on their side because they happened to find an old city trash truck. And given that most of the time the larger trucks had bigger engines than their smaller trucks and cars, there was a pretty good chance that there was something unique in that particular trash truck. But I'm betting they really weren't expecting to lift the hood and see what essentially looked like a Chrysler Fire Dome Hemi. Clark and Thibault had just happened to find one of the original 200 Arden Flatheads. They pulled the engine and they took it back to their shop. And apparently the engine wasn't in too bad a shape, primarily because they could never get the engine to run properly. But Clark and Thibault were pretty much engine gurus, and they were going to figure out why this engine didn't work. So first, they checked old hot rod magazines to see if there were any articles that mentioned anything that was already pre-existing. They found an article in Automotive Quarterly by an author by the name of D. Randy Riggs, who wrote that the Arden suffered from its steel push rods being way too heavy, along with its valves. The seats also tended to come loose. The Buick-derived lifters tended to gale. The valve springs were inadequate. The exhaust valves were restrictive. And it would blow head gaskets if you looked at it funny. They found another article where Randy Brock called it a great hot water heater. Regardless of all of the negativity around the engine, they still wanted to take a chance on this underdog. They got the engine finished, loaded it into the car, and headed out to the flats. Wasn't long before everybody out at the flats started making fun of them for running a trash truck motor. In fact, the car almost didn't pass safety because they didn't trust that the motor would actually hold together during a run. But despite everybody ragging on this car all weekend, it got out there on the salt and it did 160 miles an hour on its first run. Keep in mind, that's only 20 miles an hour slower than the record run in Alex Exidious's belly tank, which was 181 miles an hour.